So apparently we're at the point now where former White House Chief of Staff, as well as advisor on the Hillary campaign, that I believe was one of the chief advisors, John Podesta, essentially they're playing a D&D style game, basically a war game if you would. And apparently they're also rolling some dice, because, there's always a randomness factor there. And the sheer fact that I sit back and I'm like, okay, they're actually doing this. They're actually letting folks know that they're doing this. And I'm like, oh, this is how I look at a lot of things in life. It's just, you run it as a game. Because what is life? Well, life isn't necessarily a game. It's a series of games. It's just like if you're doing a job, you don't just do one thing, you do a process, which is a series of different things. Different people do different things well. And now they're literally running scenarios about the election. And they're running different theories and points and stuff like that. So, well, it's at least serious enough that the New York Times is writing about it. So, the sheer fact that we're here, dude. And yes, it was one of Tim Pool's most recent videos. Feel free to check him out as well. I don't think I put him in a doobly-doo below, but this is the point where we're at right now. Yes. Oh, the media could get the election story wrong. What is actually happening here? We have no idea. We may not know the results for days, maybe weeks. So it's time to rethink, quote-unquote, election night. Well, that's the thing. If you're going to have a lot of mail-in voting, or perhaps even a lot of absentee voting, the sheer fact that people are screaming about this, I'm like, oh, wait. If absentee is okay, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, why don't we just spend these next several months before the election, I don't know, mailing out and setting up the situation for a whole bunch of folks doing absentee voting if we don't want folks to catch the plague? I don't know. This just seems like a logical thing for me. But let's just jump into it. And again, standard under a Trump presidency. Picture this Thanksgiving. Turkey, football, maybe. Tenser than usual interactions with relatives, and perhaps a new tradition finding out who actually won the presidential election. I'm literally just, wow. It's really sinking in because it's like, well, the election is November 3rd, I believe, this year. Thanksgiving is usually at the end of the month, so it's like, oh, yeah, is this really what's going on? So apparently, they're run through a number of scenarios. I believe they were using a 10-sided dice, which is not necessarily D&D. D&D is D20-based system. But the sheer fact they're literally running a war game like this, it's like, wait. So we have some of the top political analysts in the world. And they're doing the same thing that me and a lot of my buds did for a number of years, if not a decade for a campaign. I'm like, does this qualify us to be, I don't know, in government? I have no freaking idea, because I think D&D is one of the few things that I was actually pretty decent at. I could be wrong. There's probably just some bias there. But I digress. But essentially, we're looking at the pandemic. The coronavirus means that states like Pennsylvania may be counting mail-in ballots for weeks, while President Trump's tweets false allegations about fraud and the last barriers between American democracy and a deep political crisis may be television news in some versions of the maddening needle on the New York Times website. All right, so essentially everyone's going nutty bananas, and the things that we didn't talk about for years, which were often religion and politics, well, we now seem to be very focused on those things, which are nonstop in our face. Doesn't matter where you go, somebody's going to say something about something. People's escapism is kind of gone one way or another. And here's the thing. The reason why I consider myself a man of the left, it's like, yeah, I believe we should have tolerance as well. And apparently, there has been some election fraud and everything, and that's something we should probably pay attention to, because, I don't know, aren't elections important or something? I'm just saying, we should probably try to secure the process the best we could. I understand, there's a plague upon us. I think we can do better. Mailing in a whole bunch of things? You know what, maybe we can do that. If folks aren't planning to show up, why can't we have absentee ballots? I don't know, we could spend that time preparing, or we could just scream at each other, because that's what seems to get the most clicks and everything. I don't know, I seem to get more clicks when I'm a very loud dargan, but these things happen. Let's just go on a little bit there, but essentially, we're talking about big dynamic change. What are we used to? We're used to, basically, most folks coming and voting on the day of. As they say right here, First, there's already a shift underway from a single-day in-person election. In the 2018 midterms, only 60% of the votes were cast in person on election day. This is a big thing. I know, like, down in Florida, they had, like, a 7-day period. I'm like, that didn't really sound like that bad of an idea. I know folks that went on a whole bunch of different days. I know my dad went on one day. I know one of my other good friends, he went down on another day. It's like, who wants to sit in a 2-hour line or stand there for 2 hours? Especially, I don't know, during a plague. If we could distribute that so we don't necessarily need as many volunteers, and let's face it, a lot of folks that work the polls, they tend to be some older individuals and stuff, like folks within the community and stuff. So if you could minimize the number of folks around, yeah, that probably also minimize their exposure time. It's like, well, why is this so difficult? I don't understand this. I don't know. Maybe somebody does. But the big thing right here is they're literally running scenarios and saying, well, the president vacated. It's like, all right, if Joe Biden wins by like 5 points or so, I don't really see President Trump wanting to necessarily stick around if he doesn't feel like he has the people. If he loses like by like 100 electoral votes or something like that, I think that's pretty sound. But what, however, if the election is contested? Because we all know there's never been a contested election before. I remember a few. Or at least one, Bush v. Gore, let's face it. Probably doesn't hurt to have your brother be the governor. These things happen. But they're literally going through scenarios where it's like, okay, you got to play it out. Is it literally going to get to the point where we need the U.S. Marshals to literally go in and remove him for the presidency? And they're literally entertaining ideas of, well, maybe the West Coast should secede. Wait. Pause, full stop. You're literally talking about secession. I hear these folks talking about Civil War this, Civil War two, boogaloos, hooty-hoo, I don't know. But really, you're now giving fuel to the fire. You're adding memes to the internet. This is what's freaking going on, man. I see you there, Joe. Shout out to my patron, Joe Franco. But this is the thing. Hey, Austinator, how you doing, my man? But I'm looking at this, I'm like, what the hell are we all doing? We're literally role-playing what if we did a civil war. You know what? You know what I say? Now, I might actually look to put together a team for this, but I'm like, if this is how our leaders and folks that are the best of the best in the industry are literally playing a game, seeing what happens, why don't we play a game of our own? Why don't we actually see what's happening? I don't know, is this what we're arguing about? Are we just screaming at each other arguing over, well, so-and-so believes this. Do they actually believe that? How much of it do they believe? Do they believe it 100%? Do they believe it 70%, 50%? Are they just kind of like, 18%? Yeah, that's kind of nice. I don't know. Could we represent it as, I don't know, a pizza? It's a full pizza. It's half a pizza. It's a quarter pizza. It's just a slice of a pizza. I don't know. People's brains work differently. You're saying with this technology, and I don't know, 370 million folks here in these United States, we can't figure this out? Come on. We can do far better than that. But I just thought this was interesting. The New York Times article is in the doobly-doo below. Hey, Agenis, I see you there, my man. But, yeah, they're literally gamifying in a Dungeons & Dragons and or RPG-style event. Basically, different scenarios. So, all I know is, well, if we're gamers and they're gamers, let the games begin. Thank you all for watching. Peace out, everybody, and long live the album.